hearing a lot of conversations across the aisle. And as we know right now, going into a midterm year, legislation is going to be passed two different lanes, whether reconciliation or through bipartisan support. So we're really hopeful that there's going to be a big push and that we'll get something done by August.
Permitting reform is one of those areas that, when done productively, it covers a number of industries, specifically in the aspect of lowering costs. So that's why it's so encouraging to hear members that this is a priority for them. And of course, AFP and all of us on the Hill, it really cuts across all issues once you do it right, but it also cuts across once it's been done wrong. And that's what we're experiencing right now.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a number of guests here, some elected officials, others just, producers. And to talk about permitting reform, and man, it just seems like one of those no-brainers. I mean, I know that there's tons of opposition, but it just seems like something that we need to be able to do for our national security and bring down costs. But hopefully they'll get there.
Americans are capable of achieving extraordinary things when they have the freedom and opportunity to do so. This is American Potential.
Hey everyone, welcome to the American Potential Podcast. I'm your host, David Fromm. Today we're going to cover a few topics by talking to some members of our AFP team who had the opportunity to sit down with a number of members of Congress. We'll talk about the Working Family Tax Cut Act that keeps taxes from going up. We'll get into why some members of Congress ever stepped into the political arena in the first place. And we'll even have a little fun hearing about which founding fathers members of Congress would most like to sit down and talk with. Our guest today got to talk with members of Congress during the Republican Study Committee's very first Media Row in Washington, D.C. And we're bringing those conversations straight to you. I want to welcome Lauren Stewart, who is a Senior Federal Affairs Liaison for America's Prosperity, and Katelyn Bledsoe, who is a Vice President of External Affairs for America's Prosperity also. Katelyn, Lauren, thanks so much for joining us.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, thrilled for you to join us. And this is our first time having you guys going out on behalf of the podcast and kind of mining for stories and talking to folks on Capitol Hill. It's hopefully something we're going to be able to do a lot more of. And I know we're all super excited about it. And hopefully our audience will be excited to get those like real-time insights. But before we kind of get into what you all discussed, maybe talk to me about what the event was that the Republican Study Committee had and what maybe a little background on the study committee.
Yeah, so this was really exciting that we got to participate. We were one of the only outside groups who were invited to go to the new Media Row. It was their third time that they were hosting it. And why this is so valuable is because they're inviting new types of media. So think podcast, think content creators. And we pitched to them that it makes a lot of sense to have us there because we speak on the behalf of the grassroots in Washington. And we want to be able to meet with as many members as possible and share their stories and amplify them. And they said, sure, come on over. And we were able to conduct 14 interviews between Lauren and I.
Wow.
We had a blast. And to your point, we talked about a robust set of issues from working family tax cuts, A250, reconciliation, you name it, we talked about it. And honestly, it was just so much fun to be able to talk to the members and have a great time. But it's really special what the RSC is doing. And we were lucky to be part of it.
That's fabulous. Yeah, I know we had the chairman of the RSC, August Pfluger, on earlier in the year, and they've been a long-standing kind of champion of conservative principles, and I appreciate the work that they've done. A lot of principled folks there, which hopefully we'll be able to bring to everybody and be reflected in the conversations. But so, Lauren, to start off with, you got to talk to Congressman Stutzman about something that kind of really fun that he's part of. What was the conversation about? I think it's coming up in June, and what is he practicing for?
Yes. So summertime here in D.C., a good number of members of both the House and Senate will be waking up at the crack of dawn to practice with their respective teams for the congressional baseball game. This is a long-standing tradition in Washington, D.C. It's one of the biggest events for folks on the Hill, stakeholders, and really just anyone. It's a really historic, special event where both sides come together. They compete against each other, the Republican team and the Democrat team, to play a baseball game at National Stadium. So the congressman was very excited, was a little tired from continued practices that, like I said, happened very early in the morning. AFP the last several years has sponsored that event, and it's just such a amazing and fun thing to be a part of. So a very cool kind of side to what being a member of Congress can entail, right? You might end up on a baseball team, but I will say there are tryouts and there are people who, if you don't make the cut, you can be on the team, you'll ride the bench, or you can't make the team. So It's not a fade to
I didn't
far.
know that.
And it's a really special night in Washington. It's the one night where everyone comes together, puts politics aside, and just has a really good time.
Yeah, well, let's hear from the congressman about the baseball game.
I played right field last year. That's
Okay.
where I started,
Okay.
and I can kind of play anywhere. So
Utility
so
player.
that's what they.
That's
Coach
huge.
Coach Williams calls me utility,
That's awesome.
and so I can catch. I probably can't pitch as well as I used to. The right arm or the right shoulders isn't as strong as it used to. But we've got a great team. We've got some good hitters. And, you sell out the stadium there at Nationals Park.
Oh, yeah.
It's all for the Boys and Girls Club here in D.C., so it's for a great cause.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say we're going to win by 10 runs this year.
Wow, big win. Speaking of big wins, you guys also talked about one of the great things that passed this past year that AFP was super involved in, and that the Republican members of Congress really were champions of, which was the working families tax cut. And that was such a big part of our work and really moving the pro-growth agenda forward in Congress. He'll share maybe a little bit about what that bill did before we look at our clip.
Yes. I mean, what did that bill not do? It was the one big, beautiful bill, now known as the Working Family Tax Cuts. But the one big thing that it did that was our biggest priority was it prevented the largest tax increase in the country or in the history of the country. We saw this a huge on tax day. We learned from constituents and activists about the money that was saved and some of the largest refunds they've ever had. It also helped working families when it came to things like no tax on tips. It cut a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse, especially around energy and healthcare, and also helped dramatically secure our border.
Yeah, this was a huge, momentous piece of legislation that really did put the power back into the pocketbooks and just the realm of American families. So it was a huge win. We have seen tax returns, as Katelyn said, better than ever for some people. And anytime that more American families can keep more of their hard-earned money is a huge, huge win. And this was colossal for that.
Yeah. All right, let's hear from some members of Congress.
Well, I think there's no question that the federal government was reaching into people's pockets
Yeah.
way more than us citizens would prefer. And I think the great thing out of the Working Families Tax Cuts Act is that we basically said, look, the government's going to come to here and it's going to come no further. And it's going to come no further in your personal lives. It's going to come no further in your businesses. We're going to set the conditions for you to achieve economic success in this country.
One of the things that we saw on tax day was one of my highlights when we actually had a lady from our district, Courtney, that came from Ketchy Incorporated. And because of the Working Families Tax Cut, she was able to actually have $1.1 million of new equipment that she was able to purchase, over $400,000 of new technology that she was able to purchase, enabling our small business owners to be able to get those kind of investments in their businesses as a result of what we did in the Working Families Tax Cut. That's a win for everybody.
The no tax on tips, people are thrilled with that. And again, it's one thing to pass these policies and implement the legislation. It's another thing when they come due and people can actually see the results of what we did.
I come from a manufacturing district in Northeast Indiana, and so a lot of hourly labor, and when they get to work overtime and they get to keep that money, that's going to help them pay down a truck loan, or it's going to help them pay down car loan, or maybe they're going to take their kids out, for a special treat. It's meaningful money. We're seeing this wealth gap, and a lot of people are being left behind because of the inflation from the Biden administration that just ate up their budget.
The fact that we extended permanently the estate tax exemption on farms, at $15 million, means that we can transition the family farm from one generation to the next without the burdensome taxes that could make everything go awry. But the child tax credit in there, the no tax on tips, the no tax on Social Security, and all of that is being really received well by the people in Nebraska's 1st District.
Well, that's great. Love to hear from so many members that played such a role in getting that passed. But besides tax breaks, permitting reform is something that really can help Americans going forward. Here's what some members had to say about it at the media row.
Permitting reform is so important, right? There's so many projects that are languishing out there. It takes forever to do them. And it's government imposed bureaucracy that stops it from happening. So we've just got to do a better job. Permitting reform, which I serve on the House Natural Resources Committee, that came through our committee. we've got to get that done. That Endangered Species Act reform, so important to get both of those things going.
It's at the forefront of where we are in Energy and Commerce Committee. We are all for permitting reform. We were close to getting it signed, sealed, and delivered and buttoned up, and then the shutdown happened.
Yep.
So it's at the forefront of our discussions, certainly something that we want to get done sooner rather than later, and we know the White House is on board with it as well.
So Lauren, Katelyn, what are you guys hearing from members about permitting reform?
We're hearing a lot right now, which is really exciting. This is a key priority for us. We're hearing a lot of conversations across the aisle. And as we know right now, going into a midterm year, legislation is going to be passed two different lanes, whether reconciliation or through bipartisan support. So we're really hopeful that there's going to be a big push and that we'll get something done by August.
Permitting reform is one of those areas that, when done productively, it covers a number of industries, specifically in the aspect of lowering costs. So that's why it's so encouraging to hear members that this is a priority for them. And of course, AFP and all of us on the Hill, it really cuts across all issues once you do it right, but it also cuts across once it's been done wrong. And that's what we're experiencing right now.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a number of guests here, some elected officials, others just, producers, and to talk about permitting reform. And man, it just seems like one of those no-brainers. I mean, I know that there's tons of opposition, but it just seems like something that we need to be able to do for our national security and, bring down costs, but hopefully they'll get there.
Absolutely.
So I understand you guys talked about Grassroots and the importance that plays in the political process. But before we hear from some of the members, what did you all hear from them about Grassroots?
Well, this is my favorite topic to talk about ever, especially with members. We heard a lot about just the importance and how critical it is, ranging from someone, taking one night out of their entire year to go make phone calls, and an activist who, like a lot of our activists, spend multiple nights a week and their personal time to get these members to Washington to help champion these policies. So hearing directly from them, especially some of them who have they're here because of our activists and they're championing issues that our activists are super supportive of. They know what it means when AFP puts their name behind them and our policies, and it's exciting to hear directly from them the impact that we make.
Look, the Grassroots is AFP's secret sauce, and every single member that we've talked to, that we continue to talk to on Capitol Hill, know that in terms of policies we're supporting, but they also bounce ideas off of what are your activists in my community here telling you about this. It truly is the secret sauce, which makes us such an impactful and helpful organization to partner with for members. So that was something we consistently heard over and over again from everyone we talked to that day.
That's great. All right, let's hear what the members had to say.
Back in my state representative days is getting people on board then, and them having the influence on different members from where they live. I've passed two pieces of legislation from the House floor here. I must admit, it wasn't Grassroots kind of directed or backed, if you will, but certainly a number of times in the Texas State Legislature had the backing of many grassroots organizations, and that means the world to a member, no question about it.
If you're not talking to the grassroots, you don't know who you're representing.
Right.
And so a lot of times, they vote for you based on, your background, your policy positions, but at the end of the day, they want you to represent. And that grassroots, when that swells up and people say, hey, it's getting too expensive to afford a house, or you're keeping too much of my money in taxes, or I don't have access to this, that, or the other, that groundswell of Grassroots is what gets that message out there. And so I'm really, really happy that there are organizations that do that get that message out there, not just traditional through media, but knocking doors, talking to people, making phone calls. It's awesome.
A great place is to volunteer. And one of the greatest places that you can volunteer is either directly for a campaign or go find an organization like yourselves, like AFP, because they've already got an infrastructure in place that can plug you in to where you can actually have the greatest impact, probably more so than any other direction you could possibly go. And so there's unlimited opportunities for folks to pitch in and give a hand towards getting good principled members elected to Congress or state government or local government, wherever it might be. There's so many opportunities, and we need the help.
Every generation has a responsibility to do its part to improve upon what the previous generation did, and we've had some generations that have lived up to that magnificently. But we've had some that didn't. And I think we're at a crossroads in our history. The American people need to realize they've got very clear choices. And the ability to make a good choice is directly related to who you affiliate with, to where you get your information from, what you're willing to do at the grassroots level. Because what you might think as a next door neighbor might impact that other neighbor.
Exactly.
And you've got to be in a position to do that, because our form of government, what we've become the epitome of liberty to the rest of the world. And it all depends on what each generation decides in terms of governance, who they want to send to Washington or to their state capitals or to the city council. It's a participatory process. And it might mean running for office, it might mean supporting somebody run for office, it might just be talking intelligently about these with other people who will then go out and make a good decision in the voting booth.
Well, in order for folks to get involved in the grassroots, they have to take their first one small step. And obviously on this show, we've been talking a lot about people's one small step and taking that step in grassroots involvement in other ways. You all got to ask members of Congress about their one small step. And here are some clips about what they shared.
For me, really, it was my faith. I just felt called to do it because I really I told the party no years ago. I'm like, I just don't feel like I want to be in politics. But, over time we felt led to do it. We got in the fight. And honestly, it's just been a blessing to be here. It's been tough at times, but at the same time, you feel like you're making a difference. And that just kind of keeps moving us down the road to hopefully a successful career here.
I came from nothing, and I was successful because I have a strong work ethic and I have the opportunities that are unique to the United States of America. And it's important to me to make sure that another kid growing up like I did, an unplanned pregnancy of an unwed teenage mom, could have the success that I did. And I think that in some ways we've been squandering that, and we need to claw it back. We need to make sure that kids have that same opportunity so that someone coming from nothing can be successful.
Well, I've been a pastor for 37 years, so stepping into this arena was a bit different, but yet not as much as you would think, just to be honest with you, because a lot of it is trying to build consensus, a lot of it is working with people, a lot of it is being a leader and demonstrating leadership, a lot of it is casting vision and people getting behind a vision and move it forward, and I think that all of that ties into it. And so this has been something. I got into it because I recognized that there was a great need in the country. I have 11 grandchildren, and the oldest one is about to turn 11, all the way down to one that was born in December. So, well, thank you.
Yeah.
So when I look at those 11 grandchildren, I want them to be able to have the kind of America that I was blessed to not only grow up in myself, but to raise my 3 children in. And I want them to have the opportunity to do the kind of things that we were able to do.
Worked up here a lot. I knew what this place was like and really didn't want any part of it. And went home to tell my wife that I decided not to run. Thought she'd be relieved because she didn't want any part of politics. And she looked at me and said, for years I've heard you say what's wrong with the country, that you can't get good people to run. She said, I've even heard you compare it to having to go to war.
Wow.
And then she said, how can you expect somebody else to go if you won't?
Wow.
And she said, I know this is not what we want, but I don't think it's about what we want. I think it's about what we're supposed to do. And she said, I think we're supposed to do this. So I really had no choice. I mean, when your wife throws your words back in your face, you got to go with it. So.
And wife knows best.
Yeah, what they say, behind every great man's a great woman and a surprise mother-in-law.
I loved that conversation with the congressman.
That's great.
And I know we were joking at the end, but I actually got goosebumps when he was walking me through his story, because you could tell talking to him the emotion that came from it. And he was just so serious about it. And it really did encapsulate the whole point of the One Small Step campaign. It was really special.
Yeah, that's fabulous. I love hearing from elected officials. We think of them as people who are up there doing their thing. And but a lot of them have really compelling stories as to why they got involved. So, I mean, why do you guys think, it's important for people to take their one small step?
This is one of the most important campaigns I think AFP has ever done. It's reminding people that being involved civically is really part of being an American, and we are so blessed to have that right. And this campaign, the One Small Step campaign, is truly offering people the opportunity in various ways to do that in tandem with this historic celebration. I mean, I look back to my one small step, and it was simply, I was looking for a job after college, and went and volunteered with my local delegate, and then that turned into what has now been a 15-year in politics, and I've never looked back. But it really is that one small step that gets you in the door, and you just never know where it's going to take you. And I think that's incredibly special and wildly important in today's society.
To Katelyn's point, you never know what your one small step is or isn't, or whether or not you think you're getting involved in something. For me, it was in college being invited to join a debate team that really at the time didn't have much difference of opinion, which I found out when I got there. Like, I am target A in terms of some of the debates that they were having, but that just lit a fire in me of being able to communicate with people I disagreed with in an effective and productive way, which AFP does at the grassroots level, but also on Capitol Hill. We're a principle-based organization, and good policy, good principles yield good politics. But that was where it started for me, and ended up tacking on another major in political science before I graduated from college. And somewhere with Katelyn, a 15-plus year career in politics and these things. I think that when someone feels a fire about any which thing, whether it's your diapers cost too much, or the way something's happening at school is something that doesn't align with your values, that can be and should be a signal to you to get involved in any way you can. Let your advocacy meet you where you're at to be able to make some sort of difference, instead of just having that inkling in the back of your head that this really bothers me and I'm not sure what to do about it. It's what all of the founding fathers did. Think of their one small step, right? It didn't start with a revolutionary war, right? It started with being really annoyed about the taxes on tea, right? And different things of that nature. So you never know what that could or could not turn into. And it is a really special campaign that AFP is driving, especially on America's 250th birthday year.
Yeah. Well, I think Katelyn, I really agree with what you had to say. I think this is one of the most impactful and important campaigns that America's Prosperity has ever done. One of the reasons I think it's so tied to the core of who we believe AFP is and how we make a difference in the public policy arena. So I'm so excited for it. I've been so blessed to feature so many stories and tell them. And they're just like nurturing for the soul, too. It's like these people have done these amazing things by taking one small step. It's just really cool, and I love being able to listen to the story and help them tell it. So we're going to wrap up with one fun question that you guys asked people, and that was, for these members of Congress, if they could talk to a founding father, who would it be? So here's what they had to say.
Probably Thomas Jefferson. At his age at which he wrote the Declaration of Independence, it's staggering to me who he was, what he believed, and how much he defended, for someone who really wasn't, for most of his life, even believed in God, a defender of religious freedom and things like that. He's very fascinating to me. They're all fascinating to me, but thank God that they all got together and gave us this great country.
I would love to sit down with John Adams. I've just been fascinated at his story and just the leadership role that he played. So vital, and I would be fascinated to sit down with him. And there's several of them. Yeah. It's hard to even pick just one.
If George Washington hadn't commanded the Continental Army, it would have fell apart. If George Washington hadn't been at the Constitution Convention, when they wrote that Article 2 on the executive branch, they really looked at him and said, you know what? There's only one person in this country that can pull this thing off and make it work, and it's him. His integrity and making sure that he could advance, and he set the tone of what that presidency was going to look like. Yeah. And so without him, we wouldn't have the country today. He was the one that kept the Army together. He was the one that was at that convention.
Yeah. Something that really resonates throughout history is why they rebelled from Britain in the first place, right? Which is this little far-off elite thought that they knew better than those who were here. Yeah. And that's still the same exact fight that we're having in Washington today, right? Absolutely. It is something that's timeless. It's something that is just, it's built into humanity, right? When we get power, we abuse it. And having that limited government, having those checks on government, having a principally small government that doesn't continue just to grow exponentially, that actually sits back and allows its citizens to do the leading. Yeah. That's something that we're still fighting for today as we try to get to a more perfect union.
Do either of you have a favorite?
Oh my gosh. I think I would be disowned if I didn't say this. Mine absolutely has to be James Madison for a few reasons. One, I mean, the outsized role he played in drafting the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, but also he is very much the inspiration of my college experiments, James Madison University, go Dukes, very proud alumni. So we spent a lot of time at JMU talking about him and the contributions and that he made to this country. And it's pretty phenomenal. So it'd absolutely have to be Mr. Madison.
Great.
Similarly, I would be remiss if I didn't pick John Adams. He's a Boston guy. No doubt would have been a Red Sox and Patriots fan, so he would have been aligned there. But also, he was one of the most headstrong founding fathers when it came to independence. There was no kind of delicate or, kind of tactful persuasiveness in the way that he sold the need for us to be independent. And I was recently at Ford's Theater seeing the play 1776 as a part of the A250 celebrations here in DC. Highly recommend it. And one of the songs that they do is Sit Down, John, because he was just so on and aggressive about driving that we needed independence and that all the other folks there in Philadelphia needed to get on board. So he's definitely my favorite for a number of reasons as a Boston girl, but also just with his complete clear eyes from the very beginning that this was going to be and absolutely has lived to be the single best human experiment in the history of the world.
That's fabulous. So just as we wrap up, this was our first experiment in you guys going out, collecting these stories from members. How'd you feel about these conversations? Was there anything you took away from it or anything you're excited about, us continuing to, leverage you guys there on the Hill to gather these stories?
Yeah, this was so much fun. And huge thanks to the RSC for having us. And I think the biggest takeaway for me was the members that are here in Washington. I know there's a lot of news and a lot of negativity. They are so hungry to make a difference. And they do hear from their constituents and they do want to address things like cost of living. They know that's critical for their folks back home and across the country. And I think being able to hear from them directly in this environment, it was a little more low key, a little more informal. It was also just fun, like the questions about the founding fathers, sometimes when we're in different environments, we don't get to ask questions like that. But I think the biggest key takeaway is one, the want to partner with AFP to get key policies done, but two, just the absolute motivation to be here and represent their constituents.
It was just an amazing thing to also showcase AFP's broad capabilities across Grassroots in this new media row. I mean, most members on the Hill know of AFP, and just kind of seeing their faces when we were all set up like, oh, AFP, I want to go over and talk with them was really, really cool. They see it as such an opportunity to share their story. How often does a congressman get to talk about how he was led to his position in Washington? They're just getting drilled on things, topics, hot topics of the day, clickbait, things of that nature. So it really was special to kind of get that outside perspective and personal perspectives from them, talking about the things that are most important to their voters, not most important to things that you see in the headlines that really don't matter to people back home. We live in a beltway bubble here, right? And it's always great for members to be able to get in touch outside of that. They definitely saw the value. And I just think it was such an amazing expansion of AFP's toolkit.
Yeah, and I think also just a major hat tip to our grassroots. They knew that by coming to us, they would be speaking directly, not to their folks at home, but to the grassroots nationwide. And that's the whole point, or what are we doing here? So that was also really great.
Well, I totally agree. So, Lauren and Katelyn, thank you so much for going and doing this. I'm excited about our partnership and continued episodes that we can do and all the content that we can bring to the grassroots and to the AFP family. So thank you so much for joining us on this. And I look forward to our continued watching some more episodes.
Yes. Thank you for having us. We're very excited and much more to come.
Thanks. Well, folks, if you like this episode and would like to stay connected with the podcast, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel, as well as following us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And always remember, liberty and freedom are easily taken for granted. Don't take it for granted. Go out there and defend freedom and liberty. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to American Potential. You may listen to more stories from Americans working every day to expand freedom and opportunity in their communities by visiting AmericanPotential.com.